Welcome to the Igniting the CEO Within podcast, where we interview successful, high-level professionals to discover lessons they've learned throughout their career that can help ignite that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge, and I'll be your host for the next 15 minutes or so. Our show is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has developed Launchpad, which offers an opportunity for executive coaches to become licensed circle directors and earn annual recurring six-figure revenues. After completing the Launchpad program, you'll lead your own peer advisory circles, helping other CEOs and entrepreneurs excel in their professional and personal lives while providing a community of accountability, challenge, and support. If you'd like to learn more, go to quaidcircle.com. On our show today, I'm super pumped. We've got Tracy Bednar, founder and CEO of Tracy Bednar Executive Coaching. She's out of Hudson, Wisconsin. Tracy, I have been looking forward to this since you and I connected. So we've had a practice run. So I'm really excited about where this conversation is going. Welcome.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here.
Tracy, you have had a really fascinating and amazing career where you've worked in high-level corporate America, and then you've now launched and are working on coaching executives in their careers and how they continue to move forward. So over that time, I'm guessing that you have seen some excellent leaders and some not so excellent leaders. So if you had to take a look and just kind of boil it down to one or two traits that you have identified that separate those excellent leaders from the average and maybe even below average leaders, what would those be?
I love this question so much, Mark. What I would say is that the really, truly excellent leaders that I've had the opportunity to work for over time, that I hear my clients talking about, or my clients actually embody, um, possess a trait that I call humble confidence. And the less excellent leaders, the people who maybe are getting the promotions, they are leading people, maybe they're a CEO, maybe they're not,
Mhm.
but they're leading with ego. And leading with ego usually leads to focusing on managing perception. So it's all about, like how do I look? How am I sounding? Am I coming off as smart? Those types of things. So
Mhm.
that's what I see as, an umbrella of what separates somebody truly excellent from somebody who is trying to be a leader. And maybe they're even perceived, especially in corporate America. I can say after 23 years there, there's a lot of patterns and game playing and all that stuff that we bring all our humanity into
Yeah.
work. So sometimes they can be perceived as, oh, they're a really strong leader.
Mhm.
But when I work with a team and I talk to the people working for a leader, um, I'll hear the themes if somebody's leading through ego
Mhm.
versus a grounded, humble strength, humble confidence.
Yeah, I like that. Talk about the difference between ego and confidence, because I would start to debate a little bit about um, to launch a company, to be an entrepreneur, to be a CEO, you've got to have some sort of ego, but maybe it's not ego, maybe it's more confidence. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great twist, right? Because you're right. You're you're not somebody who's a wallflower, wilting in the corner. If you're about to go start a new endeavor and be a CEO, you're
Mhm.
somebody who has enough grit and enough of a vision that you're taking that step forward. And at the same time, if you're a CEO who's going to have people working for you,
Mhm.
which is the leader, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Um, you want people to want to follow you. And so, yes, you need to have a vision that this is why I use the word humble strength. It's the
Mhm.
strength part of the equation.
Yeah, I like that.
Um, you need to have confidence without self importance, or at least yourself, your vision and your commitment to your people and to your mission is bigger than your self importance. Um, and you need to have humanity
Mhm.
without abdication of authority. So you can really see the person in front of you, the leader in front of you, the employee in front of you, and sit with them. But you also have the strength to hold them accountable, to
Hmm.
give tough feedback, to have hard conversations. So yes, going back to your question, yes, you need to have confidence, but ego and confidence I see as two very different things.
Hmm.
Ego is me, I. Confidence is more of just a grounded way of being,
Hmm.
and it's a focus. It allows you to step out of yourself and focus on what it is you're trying to accomplish in this world.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, you know, launching a company like you've done, like I've done, is challenging, and not I'm not going to say easy to lead your own, right? If you're just not just, if you're a solopreneur, it's a little bit easier, right? Because your holiday parties are of one, and
Yeah,
you can make every decision and all that kind of stuff. But if you have any desire to scale and grow and expand impact, you're going to have to hire people and bring people along as your teammates to continue to grow, and the confidence um that you have to have to believe in your vision and be able to um, let loose of some of the responsibilities, that's hard, right? That's not an easy thing to do.
yeah. And I want to address, what you said about you can be a CEO and you're a solopreneur. There's probably
Yeah,
many of your listeners out there. I'm a solopreneur,
yeah.
and it's still a different type of leadership. You're leading yourself,
Hmm.
and if you have clients, you're serving as a leader for those clients
Hmm.
as well. And you're right. It absolutely requires you to tap into parts of yourself that there's a million days that, you wake up and your initial inclination will be to question, do I have what it takes? Like, am I
Hmm.
really going to make it? Am I, what's going on here? So when we talk about confidence versus ego, having the experience I've had over the last couple of years, I can tell you when my ego, and it sure has gotten in my way at times, that's when, I've gone into doing things that my focus goes to doing things that make me feel safe, that make me feel like when others see what I'm doing, it will look good. So things
Hmm.
like in the early days of having a business, saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna revise my web page again one more time," right? When really you need to be putting yourself out there, doing something scary, doing some business development, for example. So that's how I see so confidence versus ego. Ego is gonna lead, in my opinion, ego leads you astray every time. Ego is going to have you focusing on the things that make you feel safe, and the things that are having the world, you know, trying to manipulate the world to see you in the way you want to be seen. And
Hmm.
in my experience, that doesn't lead down a good path.
Yeah.
And rounded confidence, though, which we do have to pump ourselves up, let's be
Hmm.
honest, right?
Every day.
Uh, but it's like coming back to, why am I here? And reminding, sometimes it's playing your highlight reel of times that, you have done the scary thing over your career or been on a high and felt really capable. Just reminding yourself of those capabilities, that's different than ego, though. It's
Hmm.
tapping into that part of you that knows, "Hey, I'm a person who's done things in this world, and I've done things before, and I can do things now. I failed before, but I've dusted myself off and learned from it, and even if I have a failure now, I'll do the same thing." And that's how you tap into a grounded confidence versus tapping into, looking in the mirror and saying, "You're so great. No one's better than you," that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think a lot of this boils down to self-awareness too, right? I think that's one of those things that you have to know for you to be confident and to have the confidence that you're talking about, you have to know where you have skills, where those skills align with your passions, but you also have to know the things that you don't like to do and the things that you don't have a passion for, and frankly know where you are not very good, right? And
Mhm.
if you are if you are aware of those things, that's a heck of a start to building that confidence. And one of the things I like to talk about is being unapologetically authentic, where you can just say, hey, look, actually, you and I had this conversation before we started. Hey, I am not a technical person, so I can't go through this. I know that about myself, which is why I'm not going to spend time trying to be good at that. But I'm comfortable enough to say, hey, that's not my thing. And so that self awareness helps to start to breed that confidence that you're talking about.
It absolutely does, and I love that example because I tend to work with a lot of leaders who are on a journey to being able to show that, hey, there are some things I haven't mastered or I'm not going to master. It's just not who I am. And I'm
Yeah.
going to surround myself with people who complement the things that I'm not good at. And I think that people have a tendency to, especially women, I'm just going to say it,
Hmm.
especially women, to think, I need to be good at everything. I need to be able to do it all, especially to be a great leader. And it's just not true. And it really cripples us in terms of our productivity and where we're spending our time. Because if we are in there every day trying to do something that we are just not made to do, right?
Hmm.
If there's, I always think back to my corporate career because I got really good at being very open about the things I wasn't good at, but I knew what I was good at.
Yeah.
But I think about that, and there would be something that I'd think, this will take me 10 hours to do. And I know someone who could do it in 15 minutes, right? And
Yeah.
so it's good for you, it's good for the company, it's good for the team if everyone can tap into those, those zones of genius, which then leads to more confidence because
Yeah.
you realize you get to spend more time in doing exactly what you were meant to be doing in the first place and where you can make your impact.
So I know where my journey to self-awareness and then the power of allowing myself to be unapologetically authentic has been. How have you seen that? How have you helped people? What are the steps that it takes maybe to help build that self-awareness,
Mm,
that comfortability to being authentic, the comfort level with saying, man, this is going to take me 10 hours, but if we hand it over to this person, it's going to take 15 minutes. What are the
mm,
steps? What does that look like as you start to build people? Because we all have it, right? Everybody has that inner, being that says, no, you've got to figure it out. Just figure shit out and do it. Right.
right. Have the right
And
answer.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
What do you see? Yeah. What do you see as kind of that journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first, I want to put a caveat out there. I think this conversation is for not always, but often for people more senior in their career because I do think there's
Yep.
a time in your career where gosh, we're learning every day, right? And we're getting the
Yeah.
training wheels on. And you do have to just say, okay, even though this is really hard and I've got to gut my way through it to figure out where my
Mhm.
natural strengths and weaknesses are, right? So we'll put that to the side.
Yep.
But what I see is that often when I work with clients, they'll come in kind of feeling like they're not quite sure where their strengths are. And then once we really dig into it, they've known all along. So
Sure.
it's getting in touch with, what is it that you do that what do other people come to you for help on all the time? What are you known for? Right?
Hmm.
What's your brand? What do you do that you could do all day long and not get paid for it? What um what do you do that time passes and you don't even notice that it passes? that's probably pretty good. All of those things are great
Hmm.
indications that you're working in the direction of, the strengths that you're really meant to work with. And knowing your strengths first and where you want to be spending your time is the very first step in going in the direction of having the ability to say, here's this other thing that I'm not really good at. And the reason I say that is because, especially in corporate America, where, when you're an entrepreneur, it's a little easier to have a conversation with yourself and give
Right.
yourself permission, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in corporate America, where it's really built, as much as we do personality tests and we do all of these things to talk about what's special about each individual person,
Hmm.
usually after a 3-day retreat where people do, the DISC or the Myers-Briggs or something, they come back to their level 6 role where they have the exact same expectations as everybody else, and you have this list that everyone is trying to perform to. So it can feel really vulnerable
Hmm.
and really limiting to say, "Well, I'm actually not interested or good at item 6, 7, and 8."
Yeah.
So, coming in with your strength allows you to position things very differently, because if you
Hmm.
can position your strength and connect it to the business outcome. So what that looks like is, we have X objective for the quarter. Using people's words back to them is always really powerful. So,
Right.
like, let's say that an executive talked about something during a quarterly briefing. And afterwards, you have a conversation with them and you say, I heard what you said about our number one goal this quarter is X, right? I think I can really help. And here's how. And I'd like to spend more time doing that. But in order
Hmm.
to do that, I want to give up something that I'm not as good at, that takes a lot of time and energy, but isn't my zone of genius.
Yeah.
That's how that flow can look. But it all starts with understanding where your strengths are, because your strengths are going to lead to where you can contribute and where you can have an impact.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And again, going back to the corporate America conversation, right, where I spent the majority of my career as well, is you're also competing, right? Competing
Mhm.
with people at similar levels for that next promotion and the next role and all that kind of stuff. So, you're right that you are generally going to be timid to be as vulnerable as what we just talked about. So it is not as easy to do. I get that.
Mhm.
I do want to bring that conversation back from the side that we put aside of, the your self-awareness and who you are is ever changing and ever evolving. And um, part of that comes from experiencing different things, right? And allowing yourself to experience different things and allowing yourself to fail at some things to figure out what it is that you really are good at, even though, or what you have a passion for, even though you may not be good at it today. If you have a passion for it, you're going to figure out how to get better at it, right? So
Right.
talk a little bit more about that evolution of figuring out who you are and how that plays into your growth as a leader.
Mm. That's a great question. So, I mean, some of it's just simply experience, let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's having enough life experiences, having enough work experiences, and taking the time to reflect, to say, what did I enjoy? What was I great at? Where did I make an impact? So some of it is that. But honestly, there are also things that I've done that were utterly painful.
Right.
So, for example, gosh, my when I was a kid, I was so shy and so afraid of public speaking. And I put myself on a path of doing really hard things to get comfortable with public speaking, because I had this vision of where I wanted to be, and it was hazy. I didn't know exactly. Like, there's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
people say I want to be a doctor, that was not me.
Yeah.
But I did know that in all likelihood, I wanted to be in a position of influence, and I needed to develop the skill of public speaking. And
Hmm.
so on the one hand, you could say, "Oh, I'm really bad at that." And it feels really bad because it felt
Hmm.
really bad, like
Yeah.
sweaty palms, shaking note card, looking down at it. I was really
Right.
terrible.
Yeah.
Um, but I put myself through the paces of going through many, many trainings, even getting a minor in college. And then I remember talking to a friend of mine who was a CEO for a small company and telling her I had gone to something called executive leadership or executive speaking boot camp, where you came in with a group of 12 people that had cameras, you had to do an impromptu speech, it's recorded, you watch it back in front of a group of people, right?
Yeah.
And she said, "Why for the love of God would you put yourself through that?"
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but it's because there are certain things that might be hard, but you realize as you look at your goals, this is a skill I have to conquer in order to get to do the thing that I'm excellent at its highest level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it shouldn't be the majority of your day and
That's
your
right.
time, but there might be 1 or 2 things that you just say, "I've gotta get it out. I've got to put the work in to overcome this limitation."
Yeah. I no, I love that. I think that's exactly right. I know that's exactly right. When you start going back and thinking about the different assessments that we all take and all this kind of stuff, when you look at those assessments, there are no right or wrong, right? Everybody
Right.
can play in disc, for example. Everybody can play in all four of those quadrants. What that means is if you're low in one quadrant, that just means that it takes more energy for you to play that role at that time, right? Doesn't mean you can't do it. But the cool thing about the self-awareness is you know that if I have to be in that quadrant, I need to psych myself up. I need to, expend the right amount of energy. And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to sit in a corner for a while. And, similar to your, like, when I first, my first bank president role required a lot of going out to rubber chicken dinners, right? These networking events and all this kind of stuff. I detest those things, right? Like I love deep, meaningful conversations. I detest floating and saying how are you and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. So literally, I would go to these things and I'd come home exhausted, completely exhausted. Like nobody would know that I hated every minute that I was there while I was there, but I needed an hour to just chill after those things. But again, it was part of my role. And it is the role that I wanted. So I knew I had to adapt and figure it out and suck it up and, do whatever I needed to do to keep it going. So anyway, I
I
love that.
I I love that example, and I can relate to that example. I'm an introvert, and I was an introvert in sales for over 20 years.
Nice.
And so especially the weeks that I worked for some West Coast-based companies, and we go out to headquarters, and you're with people from the moment you wake up until your head hits the pillow after lots of socializing. And I'd come home from those weeks just completely laid out,
Yeah.
right? But it was part
Yeah.
of the job. And I did find joy in it. And I did,
Yeah.
but I was exhausted. But it was
Yeah.
I wasn't opting out of those weeks. It was just a part of the job, but it wasn't every day.
Right.
Right. And I
Right.
think that's the other thing is if you have to be putting yourself in something that exhausts you like that every single day, that's when to check in and say, this may not be where I want to be spending my time. So, for example, in my sales career, I was a farmer, not a hunter, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I got to really know my account, the people I worked with and develop deep relationships with them and run a business. So that played to my strengths. But if I was out there doing biz dev every day, that probably would have been a problem for me as well.
Yeah. Tracy, I think you and I could talk for another couple hours, right? Unfortunately,
Okay.
we're trying to keep these little things to some 15, 20 minute nuggets. So let's end with one last thing. If you were to look back and look at 20-year-old Tracy Bednar, what is one thing that you wish she would have known that you know now?
Mm, wow. There's so many things. Wow, I'd really love to have a conversation with her. You know, I at that specific age, I wish she would have known that I was motivated. I was willing to work hard. I was willing to put in the time. I was willing to try everything I was bad at, right? Which I think were good things. But I wish she would have known, like, try to have fun along the way. It's not all so serious, and it's all going to work out. You're going to get where you want to get to. So, I do think, even especially for entrepreneurs listening to this, I have to remind myself of that now. Like, why am I doing this? I'm trying to enjoy life. I'm trying to make a contribution to the world. And don't take it so seriously that you don't see the gift of, like, moment to moment, just trying to step in and live life and have a great experience and make an impact in the world.
Amazing. That's great. That's really cool. Hey, so wrap up real quickly for me. How do people get in touch with you? What does an engagement look like with you?
Yeah.
And let's go from there.
Perfect. The best way to get in touch with me is either on LinkedIn, which I will share with you, Mark, afterwards,
Perfect.
or it is on my website, which is tracybednar.com. And an engagement with me, I work in a 12 session package and just deep dive with people. Oftentimes, we start our coaching really talking about identity because it all starts with how people, like you said, Mark,
Hmm.
self-awareness. How am I thinking of myself? What type of person do I think that I am? And that's usually where people are um, starting to get in their own way. So that's how we work. I also work with corporate clients as well, and you can reach me the same way, LinkedIn or on my website.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Thanks for joining us. This has been a
Yeah.
blast.
This is a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Well, folks, we continue to find these amazing leaders who have incredible experiences and insights, and we've done it again with Tracy. As a reminder, Igniting the CEO Within is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has created Launchpad, which provides an exciting opportunity for executive coaches to become licensed circle directors and earn annual recurring six-figure revenues. To find out more, visit quaidcircle.com. Until next time, keep igniting that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge. Thanks for listening.
That was great. Thank you for making it so easy for me because this is one of my first podcasts. So I really appreciate it. Yes.